Captain Eric Buck Rogers guided his sleek starfighter through the debris field, narrowly avoiding a chunk of twisted metal that had once been part of a mighty warship. Sweat beaded on his brow as his eyes darted across the scanner readouts. "Come on, baby, hold together," he muttered to his ship. The alarms blared in the cockpit as the inertial dampers struggled to compensate for his wild maneuvering. Buck ignored them, focused only on the alien fighter hot on his tail. A plasma bolt sizzled past his canopy, nearly taking off the starboard wing. Buck juked hard to port, then slammed the throttle forward, racing toward a dense cluster of wreckage. At the last second, he cut power and fired maneuvering thrusters, flipping the ship on its axis as the alien fighter shot past. Buck squeezed the trigger, and the pulse cannon spat blue-white bolts of superheated plasma into the enemy's shields until they popped like a soap bubble. Armor boiled away, and the craft exploded in a silent fireball. The cost of victory. Buck let out a whoop of victory, then winced as pain lanced through his side. Glancing down, he saw a shard of metal protruding from his flight suit just below the ribs. Probably a piece of my own damn ship, he thought wryly. The cockpit seal must have ruptured in that last skirmish. "Aegis to Ranger 1. Come in," Buck said, trying to keep his voice steady as he switched on the comm. "Hostiles neutralized, but I've taken damage. Requesting permission to RTV. Over." Static crackled across the line, and for a moment, Buck feared the worst. Then a familiar voice broke through. "Negative, Aegis," said Colonel Trent, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet's 23rd Ranger Squadron. "We're still neck-deep in squids up here. Regroup with the Valkyries and escort the troop transports to the surface. Those jarheads are our only shot at taking out the Bug's ground batteries." "Regrouping with the Valkyries." "Roger that," Buck replied through gritted teeth. Trent was right. If they didn't knock out those planetary cannons, the fleet would get torn to shreds as soon as they entered orbit. Moving to rendezvous with the Valkyries now. Aegis out. Firing his thrusters, Buck angled toward the blinding chaos of the ongoing space battle. Flights of human fighters danced and swirled, exchanging fire with swarming alien craft. In the distance, the angular silhouettes of Earth's battleships advanced in tight formation, their mighty rail cannons and missile batteries sending streams of ordnance into the enemy fleet. At the center of it all was the bloated mass of the alien Queen's ship, disgorging endless waves of fighters, bombers, and boarding pods. It was like some monstrous hive spewing forth soldier drones to overwhelm humanity's defenses through sheer numbers. A fierce battle. Buck gritted his teeth against the pain in his side and pushed his throttle to the max. They had to hold the line here, in the cold void above Juno Colony. If this planet fell, the Bugs would have a perfect staging ground to assault the core worlds. Billions would die, enslaved or devoured by the insatiable hive. He couldn't let that happen. As Buck approached the embattled troop transports, a fresh wave of alien fighters fell upon the Valkyrie squadron with ruthless purpose. The women pilots gave as good as they got, their sleek Raptor-class starfighters dancing nimbly between the lumbering enemy craft. Pulse cannons and missiles cut down scores of the vile things, but there were just too many. And one by one, the human ships winked out under the onslaught. Valerie's last stand. "Valkyrie lead to all units," came a strained female voice over the comm. "We can't hold them." "Aegis, where the hell are you?" "Right here, Valerie," Buck called out as he opened fire, his guns ripping into the alien fighter screen. "Let's send these bugs back to whatever festering hole they crawled out of." Valerie's Raptor fell in beside him, plasma cannons blazing. Together, they tore a path through the enemy formation, giving the troop ships a fighting chance to reach the planet's surface. Suddenly, a massive plasma blast struck Valerie's fighter, vaporizing her shields in a blinding flash. A heroic sacrifice. "I'm hit," she cried, her voice laced with pain and fear. "Port engine is gone. Life support failing. Buck, it's been an honor." "Don't you dare die on me, woman," Buck shouted back, blinking away tears. Eject. Punch out now. But it was too late. He watched helplessly as Valerie's raptor, trailing smoke and debris, rammed straight into the heart of the alien fighter swarm. The resulting explosion consumed a dozen enemy ships in a roiling fireball. "You magnificent," Buck whispered, his heart breaking even as he saluted her sacrifice. Valerie had given her life to clear a path for the transports. He wouldn't let it be in vain. Alone now, Buck plunged into the fray with reckless abandon, lasers and missiles sending alien craft tumbling and burning on all sides. A final blow. His vision narrowed, his whole being focused on mowing down the vile things, heedless of the alarms wailing in his cockpit or the blood soaking his flight suit. He had to hold them off just a little longer. With a bone-jarring impact, an alien plasma bolt punched through the Aegis's failing shields and slammed into the fuselage. Consoles exploded in a shower of sparks as the cabin decompressed, the escaping air tearing the shard of metal from Buck's side in a spray of blood. Warning klaxons blared, nearly drowned out by the roar of wind. Fighting to stay conscious, Buck pawed at the ejection lever. The canopy blew away, and rocket motors fired, blasting his command chair free of the disintegrating ship. Then a chunk of burning debris smashed into his helmet, and everything went black, awakening him on HFY. A new reality. Buck awoke with a gasp, his eyes flying open. He tried to sit up, but searing pain shot through his body, forcing him back down. Blinking away tears, he found himself staring up at an unfamiliar ceiling, a cool breeze wafting across his bare skin. Bare skin. Buck's brow furrowed as he realized he was naked beneath a thin sheet. He appeared to be lying on some kind of bed in a sparsely furnished room. Sunlight streamed in through tall crystalline windows. Unfamiliar surroundings. "Where the hell am I?" Buck muttered, his voice hoarse. The last thing he remembered was ejecting from the Aegis as it came apart around him. After that, nothing. How had he gotten here? Where was here? The sound of a door opening drew his attention, and Buck turned his head to see a woman striding into the room. No, not a woman. A goddess made flesh. Meeting Aura. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with flawless olive skin and a wild mane of fiery red hair. Her face was all high cheekbones and full lips, her eyes a striking amber color. She wore a sleeveless tunic of some gossamer material that clung to her generous curves and left her long, muscular legs bare. Around her waist hung a belt of golden links from which a small dagger dangled. Buck's mouth went dry as he drank in the sight of her. She was quite possibly the most beautiful creature he had ever laid eyes on, and yet there was something undeniably dangerous about her, a coiled lethality in her easy grace. A conversation begins. The woman noticed him staring, and her lips quirked in a small smile. "Ah, you're awake," she said, her voice a smoky purr. "How do you feel, warrior?" Buck tried to speak, but only a dry croak emerged. The woman moved to a side table and poured a glass of water from a crystalline decanter. Then she approached the bed, sliding a hand behind his head to lift him gently, and held the glass to his lips. Buck drank greedily, the cool water soothing his parched throat. When he was done, the woman set the glass aside and lowered him back down. Ara's introduction. "My name is Ara," she said, settling on the edge of the bed. "You are in the city of Thyra on the planet HFY. My sisters and I rescued you after your ship was destroyed." HFY, Buck said, his brow furrowing. "I've never heard of it. What system is this?" "Revelations. I'm not surprised," Ara replied. "We are far from your Earth, in the Artemis cluster. My people, the Hypatian, have kept our world hidden for generations, a sanctuary against the ravages of the galaxy." Buck struggled to process this. The Artemis cluster was uncharted space, a vast expanse of swirling nebula and rogue stars. Few who ventured into the cluster ever returned, and yet if this woman spoke true, there was an entire civilization thriving in its depths. Buck's urgency. "I have to get back," Buck said urgently, trying to rise. My squadron, the fleet. We were fighting the hive, holding the line at Juno Colony. They need me. Ara placed a gentle but firm hand on his chest, pushing him back down. Peace, warrior, she said softly. You are in no condition to fight. Your wounds were grievous. It's a miracle you survived it all. Assessing the damage, Buck glanced down at himself and blanched. His torso was swathed in bandages, angry red lines of half-healed lacerations peeking out here and there. He could only imagine the patchwork of bruises hidden beneath. How long was I out? He asked. Nearly 3 days, Ara replied. You drifted in the void for some time before our scout ship found your escape pod and brought you here. She hesitated, then added quietly, I'm sorry, but we found no other survivors in the battle's debris field. Grief and determination. Buck squeezed his eyes shut as grief welled up in his chest. Valerie, Colonel Trent, the rest of the Rangers, all gone. And the fleet had likely fared no better against the hive's onslaught. Juno Colony was lost. The bugs now had their beachhead to assault Earth itself. I failed, he whispered brokenly. I failed them all. Ara's hand found his and squeezed gently. You fought bravely, she said. You all did. I saw the wreckage, the cost in blood and metal your people paid. Whatever comes next, hold fast to that. Your courage and sacrifice will never be forgotten. A plan unfolds. Buck opened his eyes and met her amber gaze. There was compassion there and empathy. This woman was a warrior, he realized. She understood the pain of loss, the weight of duty and honor. He squeezed her hand back, taking solace in that connection, fleeting though it was. Then he sighed and looked away. I appreciate your kind words, he said, but sympathy won't stop the hive. As soon as I'm able, I have to find a way back to the front. Earth needs every able body if we're to have any hope of weathering the coming storm. Ara's proposition. Ara was silent for a long moment. What if I told you there was another way? She said at last. A means to defeat the hive once and for all. Buck looked at her sharply. What do you mean? How? Hypatian powers. The Hypatian woman stood and began to pace. My people are different from yours, she said slowly. We have abilities, gifts that set us apart. For generations, we have used them only to maintain our isolation, to keep our world secret and safe. But now, she turned to face him, her expression fierce. I have seen what the hive does to the worlds it conquers, the suffering it inflicts. And I know my people have the power to stop it. But my mother, the queen, refuses to get involved. She fears drawing the hive's attention, bringing their wrath down upon HFY, a possible ally. Ara clenched her fists. I've tried to convince her that nowhere will be safe if the hive isn't stopped, that we have a duty to aid the galaxy against this threat. But she will not hear me. She moved back to the bed and leaned down, her face inches from Buck's. But with an outsider, a decorated hero of Earth, to support my arguments, she may yet be swayed. The decision. Buck stared up at her, hardly daring to breathe. You're saying your people could turn the tide against the hive? How? What abilities do you have? Ara's lips curved in a mysterious smile. Come with me to the palace, and I will show you. Buck had to lean heavily on Ara as they made their way through the winding streets of Thyra, his injuries still far from healed. But he hardly noticed the pain. So entranced was he by the alien city. Graceful towers of gleaming metal and crystal soared overhead, linked by arching skyways. Lush gardens and burbling fountains dotted every courtyard. The air was filled with the scents of exotic flowers and the lilting sounds of birdsong. And everywhere Buck saw the Hypatians themselves. Tall, muscular women with bronze skin and flowing hair in every shade of the rainbow. They wore intricately embroidered tunics, glittering jewels at their throats and wrists. Discovering the Hypatian powers. The Palace of Thyra. Buck leaned heavily on Ara as they approached the grand entrance of the palace. The structure was an architectural marvel, a blend of gleaming metal and crystalline structures that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. The doors, massive and intricately carved with symbols and images, opened silently as they approached, revealing a grand hall filled with light and color. The Queen's Court. Inside, the hall was lined with tall pillars adorned with flowers and vines, leading to a throne at the far end. On the throne sat a woman even more imposing than Aura, with an air of regal authority. She had the same fiery red hair and amber eyes, but her presence was commanding and stern. This was the Queen of the Hypatians. Aura led Buck forward, every step echoing in the vast hall. "Mother," she said, bowing slightly, "this is Captain Eric Buck Rogers of Earth. He is the one I spoke of, the one who survived the battle with the Hive." The Queen's eyes scrutinized Buck, her expression unreadable. "Welcome, Captain Rogers," she said, her voice resonating through the hall. "Aura has spoken highly of you. She believes you can help us convince our people to take action against the Hive." "A proposal." Buck straightened, despite the pain. "Your Majesty, Earth is in grave danger. The Hive is relentless, and they will not stop until every world is consumed. We need allies, and from what Aura has told me, your people have abilities that could turn the tide." The Queen's gaze hardened. "Our abilities are not to be used lightly, Captain. They have kept us safe for generations. To expose ourselves now would be to risk everything." Demonstration of power. Aura stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Mother, please, let me show him what we can do. Let him see the power that could save his world and ours." The Queen sighed, then nodded reluctantly. "Very well, Aura, you may demonstrate. But remember, our safety is paramount." Aura nodded and led Buck to a side chamber. The room was smaller, more intimate, with walls lined with glowing crystals. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes, and Buck watched in amazement as her body began to glow with an ethereal light. She raised her hands, and the crystals responded, pulsing with energy, harnessing energy. "This is the essence of our power," Aura explained, her voice echoing with the energy. "We can harness the natural energies of our world, manipulate them to create powerful forces. This is how we have remained hidden and protected for so long." She focused, and a beam of light shot from her hands, striking a crystal across the room. The crystal shattered into 1,000 pieces, each fragment disintegrating into dust before it hit the ground. Buck's eyes widened. With power like that, you could decimate the Hive's forces, convincing the Queen. Aura lowered her hands, the glow fading. "Yes, but we need the Queen's permission to act. She must understand the gravity of the situation." They returned to the throne room, where the Queen awaited them. Buck took a deep breath, stepping forward. "Your Majesty, I understand your fear, but the Hive will not stop. If they conquer Earth, they will find their way here. No world is safe while they exist. Your power could save millions of lives. A fateful decision." The Queen was silent for a long moment, her eyes distant. Finally, she spoke. "Captain Rogers, you have shown great bravery and conviction. I will consider your words. Aura, you will continue to train him in our ways. We will discuss our next steps in the days to come." Buck felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was a small victory, but a crucial one. As Aura led him from the hall, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They had a chance, a real chance to fight back against the Hive. Training begins. The following days were a blur of pain and progress. Aura pushed Buck to his limits, helping him recover from his injuries and teaching him to harness the Hypatian energy. It was unlike anything he had ever experienced, a force that seemed to flow through him, amplifying his strength and senses. A deepening connection. Through the training, Buck and Aura grew closer. She was patient, encouraging, and fiercely dedicated. Buck found himself admiring not just her physical beauty, but her inner strength and determination. There was a bond forming between them, a connection that went beyond their shared goal of defeating the hive. A dangerous mission. One evening, as they rested in the gardens of the palace, Ara turned to him with a serious expression. "Buck, there's something you need to know. The hive isn't just a mindless swarm. They have a leader, a queen, who controls their every move. If we can take her out, we could cripple their entire operation." Buck nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "Then we need to find her, and we need to be ready." Ara smiled, a fierce light in her eyes. "We will be, together. We can do this." As they prepared for the mission ahead, Buck felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had a chance to turn the tide, to save Earth and countless other worlds from the hive's grasp, and with Ara by his side, he knew they would find a way. Preparing for the infiltration, strategizing the mission. The days that followed were filled with intense preparation. Ara and Buck worked tirelessly, formulating a plan to infiltrate the hive's territory and locate the queen. The Hypatian Council, after much deliberation and persuasion from Ara, agreed to support their mission, providing them with advanced technology and resources. The hidden arsenal. Ara led Buck to a concealed chamber beneath the palace, a hidden arsenal filled with weaponry and equipment unlike anything he had ever seen. "These are the tools of our ancestors," Ara explained. "Weapons forged with the power of our energy. They will give us an edge against the hive." Buck marveled at the sleek, elegant designs of the weapons. He selected a pair of gauntlets that hummed with latent energy, feeling the power thrumming beneath his fingertips. "These will do nicely," he said, flexing his hands and watching as arcs of energy danced between his fingers. The team assembles. The Hypatians selected a small elite team of warriors to accompany Buck and Ara. These were the best of the best, each with unique abilities and skills honed over years of training. Among them was Lyra, a sharpshooter with unparalleled precision, and Jackson, a hulking brute whose strength was matched only by his loyalty. As they gathered in the palace courtyard, Buck addressed the team. "We've all seen what the hive can do. We've all lost friends and family to their relentless assault, but today we strike back. Today we show them that humanity and Hypatia will not be conquered. Are you with me?" The warriors responded with a unanimous, resounding cheer. Their determination was palpable, a fierce resolve that Buck knew would carry them through the challenges ahead. The journey begins. Their journey to the hive's territory was fraught with danger. They traveled in a cloaked ship, navigating through treacherous asteroid fields and evading patrols of hive fighters. Buck's heart pounded with anticipation as they neared their destination, a barren moon that served as the hive's forward base. As they approached the moon's surface, Ara activated the cloaking device, rendering their ship invisible to the hive's sensors. They landed in a remote canyon, the rough terrain providing them with cover as they disembarked. Infiltration and discovery. Moving silently through the shadows, the team made their way toward the hive's stronghold. The structure was a grotesque amalgamation of organic and mechanical elements, pulsating with a sickly green light. Hive drones patrolled the perimeter, their multifaceted eyes scanning for any sign of intruders. Lyra took point, her keen eyes spotting a gap in the patrol patterns. With her guidance, the team slipped past the drones and entered the stronghold through a maintenance hatch. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of decay and the hum of alien machinery. Navigating the hive. The interior of the hive's stronghold was a labyrinth of twisting corridors and cavernous chambers. Ara led the way, her knowledge of the hive's layout invaluable as they navigated through the maze. Along the way, they encountered pockets of resistance, swarms of drones that they dispatched with ruthless efficiency. As they pressed deeper into the stronghold, Buck felt the weight of their mission bearing down on him. The Hive Queen was close. He could feel it. They had to succeed. Failure was not an option. The Queen's lair. Finally, they reached the heart of the stronghold, a vast chamber filled with the Hive's most elite warriors. At the center of the chamber, perched on a throne of twisted metal and bone, was the Hive Queen. She was a monstrous figure, her form a grotesque blend of insectoid and humanoid features. Her eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence as she regarded the intruders. Aura stepped forward, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "Hive Queen, your reign of terror ends here. We will not allow you to consume any more worlds. Prepare to face the wrath of Hypatia and Earth." The queen hissed, her voice a sibilant whisper that echoed through the chamber. "Foolish creatures, you dare to challenge me. You will be crushed beneath the might of the hive." The battle commences. With a roar, the hive warriors surged forward, and the chamber erupted into chaos. Buck and his team fought with every ounce of strength and skill they possessed, their Hypatian weapons cutting through the enemy with deadly precision. Aura's powers flared, beams of energy lancing out to incinerate drones and warriors alike. Buck focused on the queen, pushing through the throng of enemies with single-minded determination. He had to reach her, had to end this once and for all. As he fought his way forward, he saw Aura battling alongside him, her eyes blazing with fury and resolve. A fierce confrontation. Finally, Buck reached the queen, his gauntlets crackling with energy. He launched himself at her, unleashing a barrage of blows that sent her reeling. The queen screeched in fury, her claws slashing out to strike him. Buck dodged and parried, his movements fueled by adrenaline and desperation. Aura joined the fray, her powers amplifying Buck's strikes. Together, they fought the queen with a ferocity born of desperation and hope. The chamber around them trembled with the force of their battle, the very walls seeming to shudder under the onslaught. A desperate gambit. The queen was powerful, but Buck and Aura were relentless. Blow by blow, they wore her down, their combined might proving too much for her to withstand. With a final, devastating strike, Buck drove his gauntleted fist into the queen's chest, the energy surging through him and into her. The queen let out a piercing scream, her body convulsing as the energy consumed her. With a blinding flash, the queen disintegrated, her form dissolving into ash. The remaining hive warriors faltered, their connection to the queen severed. Without her guidance, they became disorganized and easy to defeat. Victory and reflection. As the dust settled, Buck and Aura stood amidst the wreckage, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The battle was over, but the war was not yet won. They had struck a critical blow against the hive, but there was still much to be done. Buck turned to Aura, his expression a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We did it, but we can't stop here. We have to take this fight to the rest of the hive, drive them back and free every world they've enslaved." Aura nodded, her eyes filled with a fierce light. "Together, we will. This is just the beginning. The galaxy will know that we will not be conquered." As they began their journey back to the ship, Buck felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. And with Aura by his side, he knew that they could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. The aftermath and new alliances. Returning to Thyra. The journey back to Thyra was somber but filled with a sense of accomplishment. The team had suffered losses, and the weight of those sacrifices hung heavy in the air. But they had struck a decisive blow against the hive. As their ship landed in the palace courtyard, a crowd of Hypatians gathered to greet them. Their faces were a mixture of relief and awe. Aura stepped forward, addressing her people. "Today we have proven that together we can stand against the hive. This victory is just the beginning. We must prepare for the battles to come and ensure the safety of our world and the galaxy." Acknowledgement from the queen. The queen, standing at the palace entrance, nodded in approval. "Aura, you and your team have shown great bravery and strength. We will honor those who have fallen and continue to fight for our survival. Captain Rogers, you have our gratitude and respect. Your courage has inspired us all." Buck bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. The hive is a formidable enemy, but together we can overcome them." Strategic planning. Over the next few days, Buck, Aura, and the Hypatian Council worked tirelessly to devise a strategy for the ongoing war against the Hive. They contacted allied worlds, sharing the news of their victory and rallying support for a united front. The Hypatians, with their unique abilities, became a key component of the coalition forces. Training the troops. Buck and Ara took on the responsibility of training new recruits. They combined Hypatian energy techniques with human combat tactics, creating a formidable training program. The recruits, both Hypatian and human, showed remarkable progress, their determination fueled by the recent victory. One day, during a training session, Buck noticed a young Hypatian warrior struggling with her energy control. He approached her, offering guidance. Focus on your breathing. Let the energy flow naturally. Don't force it. The warrior nodded, her face set in concentration. With Buck's help, she managed to harness her energy, a beam of light shooting from her hands and striking the target with precision. She turned to Buck, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Captain. Growing bonds. As the training continued, Buck and Ara grew closer. Their bond, forged in the heat of battle, deepened with each passing day. They spent their evenings discussing strategies, sharing stories, and learning more about each other's worlds. Buck admired Ara's strength and wisdom, while Ara was drawn to Buck's resilience and unwavering spirit. One evening, as they walked through the palace gardens, Ara paused, gazing up at the stars. Buck, do you ever wonder what the future holds for us? For our worlds? Buck followed her gaze, his expression thoughtful. I do. I think about the battles we'll face, the lives we'll save. But most of all, I think about how we'll face it together. We're stronger together. Ara smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. Yes, we are. And together, we'll create a future where our people can live in peace. The Hive's retaliation. Just as they began to feel a sense of stability, a distress signal came through from a neighboring planet. The Hive had launched a retaliatory strike, their forces overwhelming the planet's defenses. Buck and Ara knew they had to act quickly. Gathering their team, they prepared for another mission. This time, they would be leading a larger force, a coalition of Hypatians and humans united against a common enemy. As they boarded their ships, Buck addressed the troops. The Hive thinks they can break us. They think they can crush our spirit, but they don't know who they're dealing with. Today, we show them that we will not back down. We will fight for every world, for every life. Let's show them what we're made of. A united front. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace above the besieged planet. The Hive ships swarmed, but the combined forces of Hypatians and humans met them head-on. The battle was fierce, the sky filled with explosions and streaks of energy. Buck and Ara fought side by side, their synergy in combat a testament to their training and bond. As they pushed forward, they saw the Hive forces begin to falter, their coordinated attacks losing cohesion. The tide was turning, a decisive victory. With a final coordinated assault, the coalition forces broke through the Hive's defenses, driving them back and liberating the planet. The inhabitants, freed from the Hive's grip, emerged from their shelters, their expressions a mixture of relief and gratitude. As the dust settled, Buck and Ara stood amidst the rubble, their hearts filled with hope. They had faced the Hive's retaliation and emerged victorious. It was a hard-fought battle, but it proved that their alliance was strong, their resolve unbreakable. Looking ahead, back on HFY, the celebrations were tempered by the knowledge that the war was far from over. But there was a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that together they could overcome any challenge. Buck and Ara continued to lead, their bond a symbol of the unity between their peoples. As they looked out over the city of Thyra, Buck took Ara's hand. We've come a long way, Ara, and we've got a long way to go. But I know we can do this. Together. Ara squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with determination. Yes, Buck. Together, we'll face whatever comes, and we'll build a future where our worlds can thrive in peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but with allies by their side and hope in their hearts, Buck and Ara knew they could overcome any obstacle. The fight against the hive was far from over, but they were ready. Together, they would forge a new path, one of unity, strength, and hope. The final push against the hive. A call to arms. The coalition forces, now strengthened by their recent victory, prepared for the final assault on the hive's main stronghold. Intelligence reports indicated that the Hive Queen had retreated to a heavily fortified planet deep within the hive's territory. This was the heart of their operations, and taking it out would cripple their entire network. Buck and Ara stood before a vast holographic map in the strategy room, surrounded by military leaders from various ally planets. Buck pointed to the highlighted coordinates. This is our target. The Hive Queen's lair. It's heavily defended, but if we can break through, we can end this war. Strategic planning. General Rail, a grizzled veteran from a nearby star system, nodded. We'll need to hit them with everything we've got. Coordinated strikes on their key defense points, followed by an all-out assault on the Queen's fortress. Ara added, our Hypatian forces will lead the charge on the ground. Our abilities give us an edge in close combat, and we can disable their shields, but we'll need support from the air to keep their fighters off our backs. The leaders nodded in agreement. Plans were set, orders given, and the coalition fleet began to mobilize. This would be the most significant battle they had ever faced, and failure was not an option. Rallying the troops. The day before the assault, Buck and Ara addressed the combined forces. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and support staff stood at attention, their faces a mix of determination and anticipation. Buck stepped forward, his voice strong and steady. Tomorrow, we face the heart of the hive. We fought hard to get here, and we've lost many along the way. But their sacrifices were not in vain. We fight for them, for our homes, for our future. We fight for every world that has suffered under the hive's tyranny. Let's show them that we will not be broken. Let's end this once and for all. The crowd erupted in cheers, their resolve steeled for the battle ahead. As the troops dispersed to their preparations, Ara turned to Buck, her eyes filled with determination. We're ready, Buck. Let's make this count. The assault begins. The coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace above the hive's stronghold, a massive armada of ships from every corner of the galaxy. The hive's defenses were formidable, but the coalition forces were relentless. Fighters swarmed, battleships fired volleys of missiles, and energy beams lit up the dark void of space. Buck piloted his starfighter with precision, weaving through the chaos and taking out enemy fighters with deadly accuracy. Beside him, Ara's ship moved with fluid grace, her powers amplifying their effectiveness. Together, they spearheaded the assault, leading the charge toward the planet's surface. Breaking through, the ground assault was fierce. Hypatian warriors, with their energy-based abilities, led the charge, disabling the hive's defensive shields and clearing paths through their lines. Buck, Ara, and their team pushed forward, every step a battle, every moment a test of their resolve. As they approached the Hive Queen's fortress, resistance grew even more intense. Hive drones and warriors threw themselves at the coalition forces with desperate ferocity. But the coalition pressed on, their unity and determination driving them forward. Confronting the Queen. Finally, they breached the inner sanctum. The Hive Queen's throne room was a cavernous chamber, pulsating with eerie green light. The Queen herself stood at the far end, her eyes glowing with malevolent fury. You dare to challenge me here, in my domain, she hissed. Buck and Ara stepped forward, their weapons at the ready. Your reign ends now, Buck declared. No more worlds will fall to your tyranny. The Queen let out a piercing scream, and the battle began. Hive drones swarmed, but the coalition forces held their ground. Buck and Ara fought side by side, their synergy in combat a testament to their bond. Energy blasts and plasma bolts filled the air as they closed in on the Queen. The final battle. The Hive Queen was powerful, her attacks relentless, but Buck and Ara were determined. They dodged her strikes, countering with precision and force. Ara's powers flared, disrupting the Queen's defenses, while Buck's gauntlets delivered devastating blows. As the battle raged, the Queen's attacks grew more frantic. She could feel her control slipping, her forces crumbling. With a final, desperate effort, she unleashed a powerful energy blast. Buck and Ara braced themselves, absorbing the impact and pushing forward. Victory at last. In a coordinated strike, Buck and Ara delivered the final blow. Buck's gauntleted fist struck the Queen's chest, while Ara's energy beam pierced through her defenses. The Queen let out one last, ear-splitting scream before disintegrating into ash. With the Queen's demise, the remaining Hive forces fell into disarray. The Coalition troops mopped up the remnants, securing the fortress and ensuring that the Hive's threat was neutralized once and for all. A new dawn. Back on HFY, the celebrations were jubilant. The Coalition had triumphed, and the galaxy was safe from the Hive's tyranny. As Buck and Ara stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city of Thyra, they felt a profound sense of accomplishment and hope. Ara turned to Buck, her eyes shining with pride. "We did it, Buck. We really did it." Buck smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude and love. "Yes, we did. And we'll keep fighting for this future, together." As they embraced, the stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, heralding a new era of peace and unity. The war was over, but the bonds forged in battle would endure, ensuring that the galaxy would never again face such darkness alone. Building a new future. In the weeks that followed, the Coalition worked tirelessly to rebuild the worlds devastated by the Hive. With Hypatian technology and human ingenuity, they restored cities, healed the wounded, and provided aid to those in need. Buck and Ara led these efforts, their leadership inspiring others to join in the mission of rebuilding and renewal. A symbol of unity. The alliance between Hypatia and Earth grew stronger, their shared experiences creating a bond that transcended their differences. Together, they formed a council of allied worlds, dedicated to maintaining peace and preventing future threats. This council, guided by the principles of cooperation and mutual respect, became a beacon of hope in a galaxy that had known too much strife. Personal growth and reflection. Buck and Ara, now inseparable, continued to grow as leaders and partners. They learned from each other, combining their strengths to overcome new challenges. Their love, born in the crucible of war, flourished in the peace that followed. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through the gardens of Thyra, Ara turned to Buck, her expression contemplative. "Do you ever think about what comes next, Buck? Now that the war is over, what do we do with this peace we fought so hard to achieve?" Buck smiled, squeezing her hand. "We live, Ara. We build a future where our children can grow up in a world free from fear. We honor the memories of those we've lost by creating something beautiful and lasting. And we do it together." Ara nodded, her eyes filled with determination and love. Together, always. A legacy of hope. As the years passed, Buck and Ara's legacy grew. They were remembered not just as warriors, but as visionaries who had forged a new path for the galaxy. Their story became a symbol of resilience, unity, and the power of hope. And so, under the watchful eyes of the stars, Buck and Ara led the way into a future where peace and prosperity reigned. The galaxy, once divided by fear and conflict, now stood united, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination. The dawn of a new era. Celebrating peace. The first anniversary of the Hive's defeat was marked by celebrations across the galaxy. On HFY, the festivities were particularly grand, with parades, concerts, and feasts. People from all allied worlds gathered to honor the heroes and remember those who had fallen. Buck and Ara were the guests of honor, their story of bravery and unity inspiring millions. The inaugural council meeting. The newly formed Galactic Council held its inaugural meeting in the Grand Hall of Thyra's Palace. Representatives from every allied world convened to discuss the future of their union. Buck and Ara were appointed as co-chairs, their leadership pivotal in guiding the Council's early steps. Buck addressed the assembly, his voice resonating with hope. "We have faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Now, it is our duty to ensure that our alliance remains a beacon of light in the galaxy. Together, we will build a future where peace and prosperity are not just dreams, but reality." Implementing new initiatives. Under the Council's guidance, several initiatives were launched to rebuild and strengthen the galaxy. Programs to share technology, cultural exchange, and mutual defense were established. Hypatian energy technology was integrated with human advancements, leading to innovations that improved the quality of life across worlds. Ara spearheaded a project to create a network of schools and universities, fostering education and understanding among the diverse species of the galaxy. "Knowledge is the foundation of peace," she said during the launch. "By learning from each other, we build bridges that will stand the test of time." Personal milestones. Amidst their duties, Buck and Ara found moments to enjoy their personal lives. They married in a ceremony that blended the traditions of Earth and Hypatia, surrounded by friends and allies. Their bond, forged in the crucible of war, was celebrated as a symbol of unity. A new generation. Ara and Buck welcomed their first child, a daughter named Lyra, after the brave sharpshooter who had fought alongside them. Lyra's birth was a joyous occasion, symbolizing the hope and future they had fought to secure. The galaxy rejoiced with them, viewing the child as a symbol of the new era they were entering. Challenges and triumphs. The Galactic Council faced numerous challenges in its early years. Conflicts arose, resources had to be managed, and the scars of the Hive's invasion needed healing. But each challenge was met with determination and cooperation. The Council's successes far outweighed its struggles, setting a strong foundation for the future. Unexpected threats. 5 years into their peace, a new threat emerged. A rogue faction, remnants of the Hive who had escaped the initial defeat, began launching guerrilla attacks on outlying colonies. The Galactic Council mobilized quickly, sending a task force to neutralize the threat. Buck and Ara once again led the charge, their experience and leadership proving crucial. The campaign was swift and decisive. The rogue faction was eradicated, and the colonies were secured. The victory reaffirmed the strength of the alliance and the effectiveness of the Council. Legacy projects. As the years passed, Buck and Ara focused on legacy projects that would ensure long-term stability and growth. They founded the Unity Foundation, an organization dedicated to promoting peace, innovation, and cultural exchange. The foundation funded research, supported art and culture, and facilitated diplomatic efforts across the galaxy. Ara also led an initiative to explore uncharted territories, sending expeditions into the unknown regions of space. "There is still so much to discover," she said. "We must never lose our curiosity and our drive to explore." Honoring the past. Memorials were erected on 8IPA and other worlds to honor those who had fallen during the war with the Hive. Annual ceremonies were held, reminding everyone of the sacrifices made for their current peace. Buck and Ara attended these ceremonies, speaking of courage, sacrifice, and the importance of remembering history. Building the future. Buck and Ara's leadership inspired a new generation of leaders. Young men and women from all species looked up to them, driven by the ideals of unity, resilience, and hope. The Galactic Council thrived under their guidance, adapting and evolving to meet the needs of an ever-changing galaxy. A peaceful galaxy. As time went on, the galaxy saw unprecedented peace and prosperity. Trade flourished, cultures mingled, and technological advancements soared. The vision that Buck and Ara had fought for became a reality, a testament to their unwavering dedication. Final reflections. In their later years, Buck and Ara often reflected on their journey. They had faced unimaginable challenges, forged unbreakable bonds, and left an indelible mark on the galaxy. Their story was one of courage, love, and hope, a story that would be told for generations to come. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the balcony of their home in Thyra, Buck turned to Aura with a smile. "We did it, Aura. We built a future worth fighting for." Aura leaned against him, her eyes shining with contentment. "Yes, we did. And we'll continue to protect it, together." As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, Buck and Aura knew that their legacy would endure, a shining example of what could be achieved through unity, determination, and love. The galaxy was at peace, and their story, like the stars above, would shine brightly for all eternity.